beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. John 1 verse 1. Ladies and gentlemen, the table is set. God in heaven is present. Welcome to the Men's Table, where we discuss biblical manhood and the issues plaguing our society, but we use a biblical lens. I am your presenter. My name is Mutumba Litevele. We have an amazing episode for you today. I have some co-laborers in the house. So I'm involved with a company called Undaunted Men, where we deal with mentorship of young men. And I have 3 brothers in the studio today that are involved in similar work. I'm excited for us to share notes, for us to go places with this conversation. Gentlemen, please introduce yourselves. Sir, how are you?
Fine, how are you? So,
I'm doing good.
My name is Ngoma.
Yes, sir.
I'm all about men, Umuna. So, that's the name of the movement that I'm part of. And it's a privilege to be part of this conversation.
Honored to have you, sir. Honored to meet you in person as well. I have been looking at your work for a while.
Oh, awesome.
Actually.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, but we'll get into that.
All right.
Gray.
What's up, bro?
What's good, bro? You all right?
Great.
You out here?
Yeah.
That's what's up. I love the hat.
Thank you. This is a definitive, thing. So now when people see me, they're like, oh, you see me from afar, that's me. I'm not Ephraim, but me. Yeah.
Brandon, you have branded yourself.
Yeah, I have.
This is good. No, we appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Who are you? I mean, I know you, but
yeah.
Yes.
Well, my name is Greyford Chifuka Mwase.
Come on.
Yeah. And like Mr. Ngoma over here, I'm also involved in affairs that have to do with men. Particularly, I run an initiative called Men Against Gender-Based Violence. Yeah.
Come on. Sir over there.
Yeah.
What's going on? Introduce yourself to the people.
Okay, so my name's Waema, Chenda. Very confusing names. Everyone always just does like when I say my first name.
Brother, what tribe are you? Are you even Zambian?
Yes, very much Zambian.
Are you one of us? Should we be deported?
Very much one of us. Kaonde. That's where I'm coming from.
Come on. Put some.
Yeah.
Sprinkle some spice on that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I run an initiative called Kingsmen that is focused also on mentorship of young men and just the well-being of the man in general. That is something I've been running for quite some time. Of course, not individually, but with a group of my friends.
Come on.
Yeah, and still very passionate about it, masculinity and all the things that are encompassed with masculinity. But our backbone and our baseline is Christianity, of course. So everything that we do is always just dipped in the hands of God. Yeah.
Come on. Well put. All right, gentlemen. So let's... how do we kick this off?
Start with the man in the hat.
Wow.
I'm gonna throw just a general question, right? And I'm going to go after the personal aspect of all of your stories. What specifically in your life and in your experiences gave you the push to actually jump into the work you are doing? Who wants to go? It's a free flow. I mean, I'm not going to start pointing out brothers.
Anyway, since I was put in the spot.
Since you were put in the spot. Yeah. Let's go, brother.
Well, first of all, I'm a man, right? And I think at the very apex of things, as a man, we have been endowed with a huge responsibility, which is to pretty much lead society, right? And leading society simply encompasses various facets of life, depending on which area you feel God has called you in. So personally, first of all, I was raised by a single mom, right?
Okay.
My father passed away when I was 8 years old. But thank God that I got to experience, I think, the formative years of my life with a father, so I had an experience of what it's like to grow up under a father who has never laid his hand on his wife or been abusive. But then fast forward, I'm an adult, and suddenly we are plagued by this thing called gender-based violence or domestic violence. Those are two different terms or phrases. However,
explain it for the people.
Okay, great. So, gender-based violence is simply physical violence by men against women. So the rationale behind gender-based violence is that, women get attacked by men simply because they are just women. Yeah. While domestic violence is physical violence and other forms of violence, domestic violence that happen or are occasioned in the confines of, say, a family or by people that you are familiar with and are close with. So those are the differences. Yeah, so fast forward to adulthood, and society is plagued by this thing called GBV. And it's become a very pressing issue that now everybody feels that manhood has become a hazard to society because men are the ones who are simply now perpetrating this physical violence against women and to some degree against children. And like I mentioned earlier, because it's an issue that, caught my heart so much that I felt for as long as this scourge continues, then society will not be built the way it's supposed to be built, and impact will not be had the way it's supposed to be had. And so something has to be done. But then I realized that there were so many initiatives around curbing GBV, except that these particular initiatives were predominantly run by women, and they were predominantly led by women with very few men involved.
Right.
So I felt, where are the men, right?
Because the battle is going on, but then where are the men?
Where are the men?
Right.
Especially the fact that men constitute the highest number of perpetrators. So then where are they? So I decided to look through some literature and do some studies and some research and gathered a couple of other men who were passionate about the same cause. And we felt we needed to take a different approach to what everybody else is simply undertaking as an initiative against GBV. So we came up with this idea called Men Against Gender-Based Violence. So just to be able to put a bit of context is the current, or most, if not all, the existing initiatives that are fighting against GBV are focused on women, and their idea or their intervention is simply empowering women, because they are of the view the reason why women are domestically abused is because they are unemployed or unempowered, and so their approach is, let's empower women. But we thought that doesn't take away the aspect.
Doesn't solve the problem.
It doesn't solve the problem,
right?
Because you empower a woman, she becomes
empowered, abused.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So we took a different approach where we now focus on the perpetrators. Right. So that's the background behind Men Against Gender-Based Violence.
I hear you. Yeah. Beautiful. Waema?
Well, I like the background and the story and how he came up with his initiative. It's interesting because mine stems from a similar background, but a more personal background. So growing up, I grew up in a family of 5. So I'm the firstborn in my family.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of responsibility that was put on my shoulders as a
instant responsibility. My God.
And in the entire existence of Waema, I do not remember a moment in which I had a sit down with a man to kind of give me a guideline, a map of what masculinity is or what it should look like.
Gotcha.
It's like people just expect you to grow up and throw you in the waters and expect you to swim.
You are now a man.
Yeah, you are now a man. You can now swim. You can be a man.
Yes, sir.
But then I was graced enough with the ability to observe other men around and see what they do and how they live. But then I realized I had that opportunity and that ability, but majority of people of my age group and of my gender, men, of course, young men, did not have that ability. And one of the things that spun me into beginning this initiative is I began to ask myself a question: why isn't there an atmosphere set for young men to be mentored to become men? Women grow up being mentored to be women, on how to function in a marriage, in a relationship. But for men, you're just told you're supposed to provide and it ends there. You know what I'm saying? You're not taught anything aside from there. You're not taught emotional intelligence. You're not taught how to actually hunt. You know what I'm saying? You're not taught how to tame your anger, how to deal with life's issues. You're not taught any of those skills, even financial literacy skills or things like that in that nature. But I look at the biblical background of the kind of men that came up in the Bible. Every one of them had their own story and their own kind of mentorship that happened to them and helped them become the men that they were meant to be. And I thought that should be exactly the kind of sphere that should be taken. One other thing that really pushed me against the wall is, as I was growing up, it's like everyone around me expected to be, like there was this destiny, this fate that I was just going to turn out bad. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, there was just this one eventually at some point.
But hold on, why?
Because of the atmosphere of the men around, like you're saying, the men eventually, some men were abusive and whatnot. So because of that atmosphere, everyone just said this one will also turn out bad.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I felt like I was not given an opportunity and a chance to begin to manifest what I truly should be, because everyone already had a preconceived thought of me.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, me, I have the ability to talk and I have the ability to fight back. But the other men who are in a broken emotional state and mental space, that they don't have this ability to do so. Yeah. So it kept on nudging at me until eventually I reached out to someone who said, okay, but why don't you start a platform and start to create an environment, an atmosphere for where men can feel safe and open about issues and come and resolve and have conversations around these issues. Even if you're not resolving them, but have an open ear to listen to what is actually happening on the ground. And then I was thinking about it, kind of been praying about it and whatnot. And the thing that came to my mind was King's Men. Not, of course, the movie. Dope movie. But in itself, it's King's Men, as in the King's Men. Representation of God on this earth. And I feel like we have been given that mandate to be representation of Him on this earth. So in that space, in that atmosphere, I began to pursue that conversation. And from one conversation with a few gentlemen to another, eventually, Kingsmen came out, and that's how the story began to roll. Through our own personal experience of interest to become better, and also just ensure that other men become better. Because I feel like we are isolated. We have been put in an atmosphere where we can talk about everything. We can talk about soccer for hours. You know what I'm saying? You can talk about soccer for hours, but if I actually ask you how you are, where your mental space is, how you've been doing spiritually, do you have battles that you're struggling with, you shut down. Because even within ourselves, majority of us have not learned to have an internal dialogue and have a conversation around ourselves. That's why issues like GBV come out, because you're failing to speak and you're failing to express yourself. You express yourself through your fists and your hands.
Right.
Yes, because you can't put thoughts together. And that's the only way that you've been taught. Because that's why the majority of the men have been taught is that, a man must just know how to use his hands. But a man must also know how to use his brain and his heart and function collectively as a well-set being. So yeah, that journey is what spun Kingsman.
I hear you.
Yeah.
You threw a lot. You threw a lot right there. You threw a lot right there that I'm definitely gonna get back to.
Let's relax.
May I borrow your pen?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. I don't know what happened with my pen. Just the enemy is trying to attack me.
I came with two.
You came with two?
Yes.
This is the Lord's provision right now. Yeah. Mr. Ngoma, sir.
Okay.
Umuna.
Interesting. So after listening to the struggles and also the stories that led up the men to become who they became, it's quite interesting because if you look around, you discover that a lot of men have similar stories. I do have a similar story as well. And then the question is, why don't we have a lot of men's movement or a lot of men joining hands if we are all going through almost the same thing?
Why we all just say staying in our own little corner?
So
Right.
why Umuna? So I have a very complicated story. It has a lot of background to it. So
It is a 2-hour show, sir. Don't do that to us. Let me even get the camera on me. No. Tell us. We are here to listen.
Okay, so first of all, let me give you a bit of background of where I come from.
Yes, sir.
And what led me to do this. So I come from a family of 8. I should be a number 5. I'm a number 5. Men have a tendency of forgetting their numbers. So my father died when I should be 3 or 4 years old. And when he died, my mother had to go through a deepest level of depression, and my siblings lost it. The older ones, including me, so most of them stopped school, and life became just so hard for them and for everyone. I struggled through school, but I managed to finish up to my grade 12. I started working. Just when I started working, that should be in 2014, I opened an organization. We're calling it Imaginary Focus, with the primary focus to support women because of the struggle that mom went through. So our job was just to help as many women as we can. So we used to gather around with people that I worked with, and we would buy stuff, business material for women. Let's say we put our coins together and we say, okay, let's go and help this particular woman. And when we did that, we went back maybe 6 months later, and we realized that that capital, that money that was given to the woman is no longer there. And we found out what could have been the reason. And she told us, no, my husband did this, my husband did that, my husband did this. So we realized to say there's a part where we're missing in the equation of us trying to help. So we started having conversations with men, and we began to understand what men were going through. And from there we said, okay, you know what, let's build a community amongst ourselves, because even us, we are struggling as men to identify ourselves, to have conversations. My group of friends is coming from a place where they literally had no fathers, or the fathers were unavailable. So it was that space where we started learning on how to become, learning together on how to become men. And we realized that so much in our lives was lacking. We had a lot of emotional trauma, a lot of unforgiveness, a lot of pain, a lot of frustration. And we said, you know what, this is not the light way. So we created a council of men where we just sit every Sunday late in the evening, and we would sit and have conversations. And we have been having this just with a circle of friends, just to get to understand the concept, until we said, oh, you know what, this can be an organization, and we turned it into Umuna. So Umuna basically just means being a man. It's a safe space. Initially, the whole goal for Umuna is a safe space. It was just a space where we had no objective of whatsoever, but to allow men to speak, to have conversations, and to be open. That was the whole goal. And we realized that we cannot help just ourselves. We need to help the younger ones. So we came up with a project called Tantiko Vibes, which has a primary focus for people, for kids in Kanyama, Chivoria, and John Lane. These are people that we have conversations with, and we are trying to help them become better men, so that we start dealing with them on the root level before they become men. As philosophers always say, it is easier to fix a young man than to fix a broken man. So, and that is how the movement started. And then we started incorporating mental health, we started incorporating mentorship, some masterclass. So the movement has grown now to a place where we don't recognize it the way it was. It was just in a room, but now it is an organization that has different focus areas, where we are focusing now on the youth, we are focusing on the men, and we are focusing on developing different leadership masterclass. And our goal is just to become a safe space for all the organizations to have that deep conversation. So that is what Umuna is all about. So it is just that space where we said, you know what, we need to help the men. And we started helping men. And as everyone has said, it is difficult to have conversations with men when with men in terms of empowerment when you know full-fledged that most of the problem that women undergo is because there's a man somewhere
There's a man
that is involved.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult for you to support men because you get that aspect where society is like, why are you supporting
Why are you
men?
supporting?
Yeah,
Or like,
but-
why are you supporting the villain?
Why are you supporting the villain? You know,
Yeah.
but that's not true. Most of these men are not villains. It is miscommunication, it is misunderstanding, and it is very difficult for you to convince the other person. Once I call you a thief, automatically, whether you prove beyond reasonable doubt that you are a thief, but you are in court, the fact is that you are arrested for some time for being a thief. That alone on its own it will stand for the rest of your life as you being a thief. And no matter how much you may explain it to me, or you may try to convince me, it will never work. It will stand like that. So, and I think that's where the difficulty is. So that is the whole conversation of how we created the movement, and slowly we have been growing for over now close to, for Muna, we have now been close to over 5 years now on the grassroots level. So we have been working fully fledged with Antico Vibes, trying to develop the mindset of the young ones. Yeah.
I got you. Beautiful. Beautiful. We have a lot. We have a lot of places to go to. So let me go here. Safe space. Why is it important for men to have a safe space? Why is it important for men to talk? So from what Mr. Ngoma is saying, what Samuel is saying is they decided to sit down as friends and begin to have conversations just as brothers sitting down. Why is that important? What does that do for men to be able to talk? You have a lot of men tuning in right now.
Yeah.
Some of them definitely don't express themselves. Some of them definitely don't cry. Some of them do not share what's going on, even with some of their best friends. So why is that such a powerful thing that you've actually embedded it into the strategy of your company? So you can start, and then the gentleman, you may jump in on that as well.
Okay. Just the talk of a safe space alone is giving a lot of room for stigma. And because
Umaume.
Looking for a safe space, you're supposed to be the space, but your space is not supposed to be safe. So I do feel like from the conversation that I've had for over this period, and also from what I've learned, because obviously when I jumped into this, I had literally no idea the level of problems that men were actually going through. My perception was only that these men are abusing women. Let's find a way to support them. But then I realized that even men have a lot of issues that they're going through, and most of them are suicidal, most of them are lonely, most of them are broken, most of them have issues that have not yet healed, most of them are going through serious mental health crisis situations, and most of them have no relationship with God, with their fathers, with their loved ones, and they're just existing. And truth is, men love to talk. And like popular say that men don't talk, men love to talk. But they talk about football, they talk about soccer, they talk about women, they talk about cars, they talk about scriptures, they talk about everything apart from what they feel, apart from what they need.
Right.
Because society has implanted in them that men are supposed to be strong, a man is not supposed to cry, and a man is not supposed to be in touch with his emotions. Right? So the creation of the safe space is to allow men to have that conversation where they can say, you know what, I do feel like I'm struggling in this area and I need support. It does not necessarily make you weak, or does not necessarily make you, there's this word that they often use. Sometimes when we invite men for this conversation, they say, isn't that thing like a gay thing? So there's that perception that for you to have that conversation is because you're not strong enough as a man to handle and to deal with the inner turmoil that you're going through. But over the years, through the conversation that we've been having and the effort that we've been putting in to create the safe space, we have realized that it is okay for men to have those conversations and to find space where they can heal. And in the process, I ended up becoming a psychological first aider to understand more in listening, to understand more in what they're saying, and also just to learn how to actually listen and to speak back to men. So it's been a very great journey of learning and unlearning, and also it's been a place where you are constantly asking God, like, what can I do differently? How can I listen more effectively? And how
Yes,
can I
sir.
help the next person
Yes, sir.
become the best version that you have called? Because obviously when God wants a change in a society, in a space, he calls for men. So
Yes, sir.
the constant question is, how can I be a vessel that helps a man uncog, this bitterness, this anger, this frustration, until it becomes a vessel of love. And sometimes we all need a space where we just talk, that psychological space where you just speak your mind out. Women have all those spaces everywhere. They talk to their mom, they talk to their sisters, and they heal most of the times. You discover that when a man goes through a breakup or a divorce, the first 1 month or 2 weeks or even 3 months, you'll be the most happening man. You'll be excited, you'll be happy, you'll look like he has moved on, and everything will be perfectly okay.
Right.
The woman will be crying, she'll be talking to every lady she finds on her way, and she'll express her emotions, she'll express her pain, her frustration, and her expectations. After 3 months, the woman potentially could have healed, but now this is when the hurt begins to get hold of the man. And you discover that most of the times when there's a divorce, oftentimes men are the most miserable because they don't talk about them.
Yes.
They keep them inside. But the woman would express it, I'm divorced. They even go to platforms and proudly say, I'm divorced and I've gone through all these mental health issues and whatnot. And because of that, men are not able to express themselves. That is the reason why we created a safe space, where we said, can we have these conversations? Can you tell us what you feel? Let's talk about it. And then God has been healing men. He has been healing us. There's no way you can go through water and come out dry. You listen to somebody's story and you're like, wow, okay, you know what? I really need to take inventory of myself and learn from what this person has said, and also you begin to grow and you begin to grow other men. So it's been very productive and been a very good learning environment.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So as I was listening to you speak, and you go to the part where you're talking about investing in yourself so that you can help men better.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, this work is very, it's almost seclusive sometimes. When we start, we do not know that there are other people that are doing are passionate about what you are doing. And just being, why I'm so excited to have with this conversation with all of you is that this is something I'm passionate about. These are things that I'm very familiar with. And it's very encouraging when you actually have conversations with other men that are as passionate, and they are investing, they are putting time, money, tears. So, yeah,
A lot of tears.
A lot
of tears.
Waema. So I'm very. Yeah, this is a good conversation for me. It's very encouraging from my heart. Yeah, gentlemen, would you like to jump on the conversation? Any thoughts to add to why safe space, speaking, expressing yourself as a man?
Yeah, so that's a very great submission, Mr. Ngoma. So to better understand the problems of today, so that we can be able to devise a solution for tomorrow, we need to look into the past.
Right.
And I don't know about my fellow gentlemen here, as well as yourself, Mtumba. Some time back, I went to the village when I was young, and that's some time back, like long ago.
Okay.
And something that used to happen in the village was that every day in the evening around 20 thereabout, there would be like sit-downs of boys and men alone, and women and girls alone. And those sit-downs often involved discussions where elderly men would simply pour into the younger men. And they were pouring into them their experiences and how they've come to respond to this thing called life and the many challenges that before men in life. Now, that structure also became a platform where checks and balances were had, So elderly men would, get input from the younger men. What have you been doing? What have you been up to? younger men would respond and say, this is what I've been doing, and these are the ventures that I'm trying to get onto and all that. And the older men would tell them, okay, this is the wrong path to take, and you need to go this path and all that. Now, what that did was that it created a platform for proper exchange of knowledge, wisdom, and also for younger men to then be equipped in terms of how best they can maneuver around life. Okay, so now this is exactly what safe spaces are about. This is what the relevance of safe spaces are. Because now we are in a society where we are very isolated, especially on the side of men. Men are so isolated that you find our female counterparts have got all these initiatives, like he mentioned, all these movements, all these platforms where they get to pour out. There are little to no platforms except the ones that we know, that we belong to, where men can come together and simply be able to say, I'm a man and I've been going through A, B, C, D. Is anyone amongst us going through the same, right? And then the other men also weigh in and say, I've been going through the same, and this is my approach in terms of countering such challenges and whatnot. Now, these are very important because then, like I mentioned, it's checks and balances, but also we get to a point where when I hear that someone, for instance, is going through a challenge that I've been going through and I'm having difficulties overcoming, and he has a solution, then I'm able to learn how exactly, through his experience, I'm also able to, get out of that particular problem.
Right.
Now, we need those. It's very important because we no longer have those opportunities where older men can pour into the younger men and simply educate them on how best they can be able to maneuver around life. And this is why the younger men now need to sit down, form these platforms and be able to share knowledge, share wisdom, share experiences, and also be able to keep each other in check.
Right.
Part of why our initiative is called Men Against Gender-Based Violence is because we're trying to get men to simply hold other men accountable, among other things that we are simply working on as interventions to simply curb or reduce on the cases of GBV. Okay, and this can only happen where, you see, the men are the perpetrators, right? In fact, let me give you an actual scenario. So some time back, because I play in a band, so some time back, after an event, just within showgrounds, so it was late in the evening, around 22 to 23 hours.
Okay.
The event was done and people were, heading home. And around that time that the street kids who are usually found at the traffic lights now, get into these spaces where there are a lot of people because they want to also be able to take advantage of the vulnerable looking ones. So they got into that space and they started attacking women, okay? Because women usually seem vulnerable. And what was surprising was that the women were being attacked by these street kids in full view of the men who had just come from this gig.
Come on.
And the men did absolutely nothing.
Really?
And the ones who would come to the aid of women were other women. Now, that was so cowardice of mine.
That is disappointing.
It was so disappointing, And to see that for me was a very sad reality because we are the ones who have to be able to provide that protection.
Yes, sir.
Now, it was from that point, actually, that this Men Against Gender-Based Violence initiative even came into being because we were like, it's now time for us to start speaking to other men. Like there's a duty that you have as a man when you find another man hitting a woman, even though you don't know what exactly is going on, but it is your duty and responsibility to ensure that you provide some form of support to the vulnerable woman at that particular point. In case you want to be able to know exactly what led to that squabble, that feud, you can do it later, but at that particular moment, your role is to be the hero and provide that protection. So such can only happen within these safe spaces that Mr. Ngoma is just from talking about, and this is why they are very, very important to keep each other in check.
Okay. Just a point on that. I am of the view that the safest communities where men hold other men accountable. All right? We are the perpetrators. We are the thieves. Okay? We're the ones who are making the streets not safe. When you find a community where men stand up to men, that's a very safe community where men can hold other men accountable. All right? It's the same effect as nobody messes with the girl whose big brothers are very involved in her life. They'll come and beat you.
So sisters can attest to that.
Right? So I completely agree with you that when men begin to stand up in a community, in a family, and stand up for the community, protect that community, that's going to be a safer space. It is us that can stand up against other men. It is us that can hold other men accountable. It's us that can stand between men and women in those situations. So I completely agree with you. Mr. Waema, sir.
It's so interesting. I love sitting at this. I sat here strategically so that the information can flow. You know what I'm saying? So the information can flow. I can sound wise at the end.
Let's go.
So one of the important reasons that have been mentioned for a safe space, it breaks the silence. If you've ever been in a situation where you're going through things, and I think a lot of men have been there, where you have so much noise in your head, but when you have an active environment, an active safe space where you speak, and you don't just speak but you're heard, or someone is listening to you, it gives you a sense of peace and stability, that it comes out, it breaks the silence that happens. So the biggest reason for a safe space is to create an environment for men to know that they are not alone. For me, that's just it. When we know that we are not alone and we're going through these things, and there are people who are going through these things with us, it helps us have hope. And any person without hope is one that cannot be helped.
You kill a man by taking his hope.
Yes. And majority of the times we see this because the world has taken everything that we think is important, everything that we think is good, everything that we see as important for men, and turned it against us. Like I say, you can't open up about your emotions because everyone look at you like, as a man, why are you talking about your emotions? But you can see, like even what the two gentlemen have talked about, Greyford and Samuel, the whole reason all these things have spun out in society because majority of the men have not had a conversation with other men.
Right.
If you are weak in a particular area and you have a conversation with another man who's strong in that area, and you see his stance and resolve, even you internally something with you wants to align with that.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And majority of the times men have opted to sit in councils that lack wisdom. Because it's easier.
This is true.
Yeah, it's easier to make an environment. You say, oh, look at her legs. Oh, look at her. You know what I'm saying?
Zero accountability. It's not uncomfortable for you.
It's not uncomfortable for you. You know what I'm saying? Let me tell you one of the conversations that I had with someone that showed me that it's important to be in such spaces. A friend of mine asked me, do you want to get married? I'm like, yes, eventually I want to get married. When he asked me, have you begun to prepare for your lobola? I mean, no, but then you'll get married one day. Why aren't you preparing? I said, oh,
okay,
snap.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's such environments that need you to be present in, even on the emotional spectrum. I felt like I had, and sometimes I do feel this, I don't know if other men do, but I think a lot of men do. Sometimes it is internally put in us that our emotions are not worth listening to.
Right.
So that when you express yourself, you're even failing to be vulnerable with other people. Say, okay, I'm struggling. But when you really, really think about it correctly, the strongest man knows when to ask for help.
Amen.
You know when to ask for help and who to ask for help from. You know what I'm saying? And like I said in the beginning of my introduction, sometimes people don't even need your finances. They just need an ear to listen to them.
Yes.
Like, what happened to you? What made you this kind of a man? There's so many things that happen that you may think your life is bad, but when you hear what happened to another person, you put down all your burdens and say, I need to help him. So those environments are productive and progressive in the sense that they allow you to accept one fact that almost every man forgets: you are human.
You're
not Superman.
No.
You know what I'm saying? You are vulnerable, you are flesh and blood, and it is very possible for you to fall It's very possible for you to feel hurt, and it's normal for you to go through human emotions. When you begin to understand that and sit in a room of men who can tell you that it's normal to feel human emotions, and you have what Mr. Ngoma was saying, checks and balances created for you, you are more likely to progress in life. But if you're in an environment where you are just isolated, you're alone by yourself, you're not a self-governing entity.
No.
One thing that I read, there's a book we're reading with a group of friends of mine, Changes That Heal by Dr. Henry Cloud. You read that book?
No, but this book is haunting me at this point.
Trust me, when you read that book, it changes your whole emotional perspective on things.
Okay.
Because I never viewed emotions in that dimension. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
So there's one thing that one of my favorite parts of the book is when it talks about the universal law of entropy. So in a layman's language, a closed system has energy in this system. But as long as this system is closed, the energy begins to deteriorate because there's no energy added from the external environment.
Right.
Yeah? As the energy deteriorates in this closed system, it begins to fall in a state of chaos.
Okay.
Yeah? So it begins to become chaotic. You become depressed, you feel lonely, you are stressed, you are anxious because you are a closed system. But when this system is open and other people can come and pour into
Can be added to it?
Yes. You begin to attain stability because you have external energy. When it's poured into you, you can also pour out of it. So we're not meant to be isolated as individuals.
No.
There are high rates of suicide among us men because why? We are isolated. Some of the issues that other men would go through and would cause them to commit suicide, if they had a conversation with someone and someone told them, oh, I actually went through this.
Right.
And this is the solution that I came up with. If they have hope that there's a better tomorrow, it is better for them. But when they don't have any hope, they are isolated and they think there's no way to go, the quickest thing that they ever think of is either killing themselves or something otherwise. Yeah. So it's creating an environment or a system that allows people to pour into you and you to pour into other people. And that can only be done in a safe space because there are other men you can't open up to. And that's why the name is a safe space. The men that if you tell your emotions, they will just laugh at you.
Yes.
But it's life, it happens.
Yeah.
But the actual reality is that we also have emotions. But the other men that you can sit and have a conversation with about these things, and they will be able to say, okay, Roy, I understand. So this is what happened to me. This is how you do this. Or they will just allow you to exist and to pour it out. And in that process, you let out all that emotions and you can think now clearly and you can sort out your issue. So a safe space is imperative just to safeguard your heart and create an atmosphere where you understand that you are not alone, that other people that can walk with you on this journey and there's still hope, there's still light at the end of the tunnel. I think that is important. And to just throw another, I like what he said about mentoring young kids.
Yes.
So we do have mentorship platforms and mentorship activities that we've been doing as Kings. So we go to high schools and speak to kids and whatnot.
Nice.
So some school that we normally go to, I can't mention the school, of course. And we went there and we're having conversations with these kids, by the way, grade 10s. And
Okay.
having conversations with them. And I asked the class, who inspires, what would you want to be in life? This kid raises his hand and I kid you not, he says, I would just love to be better than my father because he's not a father to me.
Yo.
I said, wait. So me and my cousin Vuyo, we both give each other the side eye like, did he just say that?
Ash, okay, he went there.
He went there. That's a young man. He's in grade 10.
A lot of trauma there, definitely.
A lot of trauma. So we put him aside and we have a conversation with him. And he tells us what is going on in his life. And it's crazy. His life is being shaped already to be a violent man. Yes. My dad beats my wife, my mom. My dad smokes. My dad drinks. My dad does all these things. So those are the things that he's seeing. And they're sitting in his subconscious.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The other girl, the young lady, and that's mentorship for men, but the other girl comes to me, and immediately she stands in front of me and she just starts crying. You know what she says? My dad told me that paying for my school is a waste of money. He would rather have me die than pay for my school fees. You see what I'm saying? Wow. So now, in both situations, what's the common factor?
There's a man.
There's a man. Yes, it's another story about a woman telling her daughter that, but the most common factor, you know what I'm saying?
We're here for the men.
We're here for the men. But the common factor is what? Is a man. How do you tell your daughter she would rather have her die than you pay for her school fees? So you have traumatized
this little child.
And this boy. And if God forbid they take that as their mirror for the rest of their lives, they'll forever see themselves as a burden,
Yeah.
and they're broken.
Yeah.
And because of that, the confirmation bias in their head will always attract all those things around them. So that's the reason we must have safe spaces. By the way, I must give a progress report. The 2 kids are doing very fine.
Okay.
The other one called me. I spoke to them, actually, both of them last week. They're now done with their grade 12. They're like pushing for school. They want to do their A levels. The other one wants to go to school and all those other things. So they're doing well. So
2-year-old. They were in grade 10 then.
Yes.
My guy. That's what's up.
So there's progress like that.
Let's go.
That atmosphere is imperative. It actually saves lives. I know he has stories. I know he has so many stories that if they told you here, you'd be stunned what a listening ear could do.
Hey.
So yeah, that's my stance on it.
I got you. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. This the talk around safe spaces, it kind of segues perfectly into the next area of discussion. We kind of touched on it because they're very connected. It's the area of community, right? And a big word comes up: mentorship, right? So we talk a lot about mentorship and community on this show. So mentorship, those that have gone ahead of you that you need to behold, right? Mentees as well. Mentorship, the other side of mentorship, you need to be pouring into somebody while somebody's pouring into you. But then there's the same level as well, which is peership, right? Which is kind of where we're coming from right now with the whole conversations. You being able to sit down with peers and have conversations and say, hey, Mr. Ngoma has been through this. Okay. I mean, he made it out. I think I will be okay, ne?
Yeah.
So how did you deal with this, Yeah, like you hear a lot of stories about men that get in debt and then you commit suicide. But then if you had a conversation with some other men that have been through that situation, probably even with more millions than you are talking, and they handled it, they dealt with it, you'll be okay. I think it's important for men to behold other men. And this kind of brings me down to, let's go specifically to mentorship, right? Personally in your lives, how have you found mentorship? Have you found it easy to find mentors? Do you have physical mentors? Do you have people that you just look up to and you watch? Where do you think the place of mentorship is in the growth of a man, right? So I've kind of given you what my perspective is somewhere in that answer, but I'm going to throw it back to you guys. Let's talk about mentorship.
Okay. So I jump onto it. Mentorship is very tricky for me, I think, because of the fact that we have diverse perspective and also looking at the areas where people come from. Also, mentorship also matters as well. So you look at a kid who is coming from, say, Kanyama. They look up to potentially maybe a bus driver as the person that they look up to, or they look up to an abuser because he has money, he's called a commando, he has status, he has power in the society.
That is real.
So they're looking up to that person as their mentor because that person has power. When they walk into the society, everybody's looking up to them. And mind you, doctors, nurses, and people that are doing well in life, they don't stay in those areas. They move. They could come from there, but the moment they get any level of success, they move from that area. So that area is void of people that are successful.
The kids do not have that
They do
access.
not have that access
Yes,
of
sir.
saying, even me in this area, I can be a doctor, I can be a pilot, I can be this, because there's no example. They can only see commanders, they can see bus drivers, they can see people that are struggling in one area or the other. You know what I mean? So even when you go there and you give them perspective of what you feel is the best way, they wonder, like, what do you mean? You go to a girl child and you say, you can be the next future president, you can be the next future leader, I believe in you. And she's like, look, everybody that I know got married at 17 years old. Now that I'm 19, I'm struggling. I'm desperate. I really need a man. What are you telling me about me being successful? So because of that perspective,
That is
so
real.
those are things that you need to consider as well. And then when we come into mentorship as well, just from peer to peer, even just for me to seek mentorship, it is very difficult. because first of all, you have to understand the person's theology. What do they believe in, right? What concepts do they believe in? And most of the times, it's very difficult to find a man who aligns with your thoughts, because most of us that are working in these spaces, we have very different conflicting ideas. If you follow through the scientific method, they may not align with your Christian principles. And sometimes when you follow through with the Christian mentors, they may not align with your perception of how things are supposed to be done. So there's a huge gap and disparity in regards to understanding. However, there are few mentors that are willing to teach you and to build you. Because remember, whenever you meet someone, you're exchanging energy, you're exchanging thoughts, you're exchanging belief systems, and you're exchanging platforms. And there's no way you can meet a mentor and the mentor only trains you. You also train your mentor in a way, because every person is unique. So even the information they're pulling into you they're going to learn how to pour it into you. In the process, they'll learn you and you will learn them. And that is the reason why we encourage open conversations. And I would gladly tell you that most of the mentors that are readily available to mentor men are women. Because
that's very true.
Because women are readily available they know how to communicate, they know how to nurture, and they have the patience to nurture a man. Say, okay, you know what, I can understand that you're having difficulties expressing yourself. Men have sometimes there's this word I often use that sometimes gets me in trouble. Sometimes I say men are emotional retards. They don't know how to understand emotions. They don't know how to express their emotions. But on the other hand as well, men do not have the emotional vocabulary. That blocks them from expressing themselves effectively. The emotion men are encouraged to use, and even in society they'll say, okay, it's okay, is to express anger. Men know how to express anger, they know how to beat the table, they know how to insult. So it's very difficult to find a mentor when you don't know how to express yourself effectively. So when you meet a mentor as a man, because you're a man, you're a hunter, you go straight forth and say, you know what, I want you to mentor me. The person is like, I don't have a time to have somebody become a burden for me. You know what I mean? Because mentoring you is a lot of work. So instead of a woman would go to a person and say, you know what, I love what you're doing. I would love to learn more of what you do, you know. But for us men, we just say, I want you to be my mentor. I love what you do. Mentor me. They're like, okay. So we are more direct in our approach. So sometimes mentors are not willing to accommodate us in their spaces. But overall, I've seen a lot of mentorship. I've been trained by a lot of people. For my mental health, I had Naim Daha who trained me. For much of this space that I do, I was trained by Maria Banda, a lady. She trained me into how to learn the organization, understand different spaces. I'm being mentored by my spiritual father in terms of how to talk to men and understand the different assignment that God has put on them. And even as I'm doing all this, there's also people that are mentoring me in terms of leadership. So I'm being mentored in leadership by Pastor Thomas. He has been mentoring me in leadership and teaching me all these different principles, and also been supporting me in all these endeavors and activities that I do. So it's a lot of work, but for me, I do feel like being mentored now is a little bit more difficult, because you have to learn how to position yourself as a man and to position the next person also for mentorship. So you have to be more deliberate in your approach and in your intention, but not so what's the word? Not so brutal as just I say, mentor me, train me, teach me.
So there's an approach. There's
an approach that you need to
mathematical
approach. We have to be very deliberate about it. Yeah.
My guests decided to jump into an entire topic whilst we were off air. So what we're gonna do right now is touch a bit on that, since we are talking about men, and then we're going to segue. Greyford had the microphone. We're talking about dating and what's on the market, you know. And Waema and I are in a similar situation, right? I'm not going to expose us right now, but
yeah, let's keep it
great.
secret.
Let's go. Your perspective on this issue, sir.
You see what? When it comes to relationships, especially relationships that are working towards a marriage, I think for men, if you have so many boxes to tick, you are not going to marry.
Right.
You are not going to marry. Because, first of all, when it comes to picking who decides marriage, it's not the men. We like to think we choose a partner, when actually we are the ones who are chosen. All we do is simply go and make an offer. The woman makes the acceptance.
Yeah.
The acceptance is very important for you to have an agreement.
She is reviewing CVs.
Yeah,
in, day out.
Reviewing CVs. Okay. So now, if you are going to have all these things to tick, it means you are never going to get to that point. My issue is that, we are human beings, and everyone has an issue. Today, they will look like they're very perfect, right? Until you are 2-3 years into a relationship with them, or even a marriage with them. And then you start thinking, oh my God, did I make the right, choice? So the best you can do, I think, at the very apex of your decision making is perhaps look for the Christian values.
Sorry, cut. No, this is a sign. We definitely need to have a separate session for this.
Yeah.
So when I started recording, the camera was on me, and I didn't switch it back to that side.
Oh, okay.
It's a sign. This is a sign.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna redo the intro, and then we're gonna jump back in. We're gonna talk about this, gentlemen. We should have coffee together and then talk. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Men's Table. I am your host. I'm your presenter, Mtumbali Tevele. We're here with Mr. Ngoma, Mr. Greyford, and Mr. Waema. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through. I appreciate you. We're now about to jump into the second hour of the show. And before we left, Mr. Ngoma was wrapping up his perspective on mentorship, breaking it down, the difficulties of it, the intricacies of it, his own personal story, who's mentoring him. And we're about to jump into the other two gentlemen. What are your perspectives on mentorship? And possibly, I would like, if you can, pick up from one of the points that Mr. Ngoma mentioned. He spoke about how for men, it's a bit difficult to find men that are willing to mentor, right? Pick it up from there. Why do you think that is? What has been your own personal perspective on that?
Okay, let me pick it up from there. First of all, I know that majority of the men that are in the right position to mentor have the same stress of so many men running to them needing to be mentored. So it's very, very difficult. If we mention the men that we look up to here, well, most of us are going to mention the same group of men.
All right.
Or they run in the same circles. So if it's us who are mentioning them here, they're definitely being mentioned by other people as well.
Right.
So they have the same stress. Then the majority of the other men that are around have what Mr. Ngoma was saying, that the emotional intelligence spectrum and the time that they have is low. Kingsman was birthed through a woman. Cooper's Network for Young Women,
Lady
founder,
Norena.
Lady Norena, mom, is the one who said, you know what, I love what you're talking about, and I love the idea that you are running with. She gave us the platform. She gave us the way to run as Kingsman. So even when Kingsman has issues, even when I have issues, I am running back to Lady Norena. She has a space open for me to come and speak. You know what I'm saying? So the very few men that have created an environment that allow you to run to them for mentorship, and at the same time, it is very difficult for you to find people that align with your thought and the direction that you want to have.
Yeah, same problem that Mr. Ngoma mentioned.
Same problem with what Mr.
Right.
Ngoma said. And the problem comes in the sense that very few of them will prepare an environment to actually discern what is meant for you. Majority of them would want to impose what they think should be for you. Yeah. Not sit down to listen, to understand that, okay, say, this person, the perspective is like this, and this is how they should deal with things. But they're going to just say, this is how you should think, and this is the direction I should go. And not sit down to actually download information or have a conversation or learn from you what is intended for you as a person. So in that itself creates a lack of space for you to develop and bloom. And there are also multiple facets for you as a man that you need to grow and become who you need to become. And because of that, it's difficult because even leadership styles are different.
Right.
Theology is different.
Mm-hmm.
Perspectives on life and other factors are different. You know, even depth of the person that you want to be mentored by you. Some people look superficially good. You know what I'm saying? I've met men that you look at on media and like, yeah, but when you have a conversation with them, you're like, no, bro. You get what I'm saying? Because they look good in terms of status, and everyone looks good at them, but the core of it isn't as good as it looks like. So even the absence of mentorship from the world, we all just view it as a position of power. We all just want to be in a position of power, of control, to be feared, to be looked at, to be seen as this amazing thing when you are actually not. One of the things that has been at the back of my head throughout the year is functionality. Everything will always be seen through your results. How good are your results? And that's why I think majority of us should base our mentorship styles, or who people we should run to mentor us, is what are the results of the things that they're doing. If they're showing results, then we can run to them. And what kind of people are they really? And some people, you just go to them for a certain facet of them. Okay, he's a good leader in the corporate space. How does he manage that?
Right.
You pick that element and you learn from it. You can't learn from everything that they are.
I like that. Mr. Gray, before you jump into that, I like where you went to at the end, because the wrench that I was going to throw yourself and Mr. Ngoma as well is aligning and finding somebody who completely mirrors you is almost like looking for yourself. To be fair.
Yes, to be fair, yeah.
To be fair, right? And I think the work is more on us who want to be mentored. I like where you went to at the end of it, where it's you assess, you sit under. When it comes to corporate, we can jive. I can listen, I can take notes. When it comes to women, 3 divorces, side chick, I'm good.
You know what I'm saying?
The wisdom has to be, the honesty has to be on you as well, to know which well to draw from and what to draw from. It's not you go to somebody and you completely open up your entire life to them, and you think that they'll be relevant to every area. I don't think anybody is relevant to all the areas, right? But considering that both of you mentioned the alignment part, let me ask a direct question. When we're talking about, because he mentioned theology, you mentioned ideas as well. Are we saying there are few men of integrity around that we can look up to, or maybe even bring it down to Christian men? Is that the direction we're going, right? Because if we're talking about alignment, and when you guys were talking alignment, I kind of felt, okay, honor, integrity, those were sort of the sentiments that you guys were presenting. Do you think in our current society, and we're in Zambia, we're Zambians, so hey, let's talk about our nation. Do you feel that finding men of integrity and of honor that align with your perspectives in that way, the bucket, or should I say the pool, is very slim? What are your perspectives?
It's dynamic.
Let's go.
Very, very dynamic. I think there's a huge pool of men that have principles, and they're men of honor, and also they're doing the right thing, right?
All right.
But this is where it gets to, right? And just to be honest.
Let's be honest.
Let's be honest, right?
Yes, sir.
If a man from my church who is very good at what he does, he has no status of whatsoever on society level, but he's very hardworking, he's possibly an accountant, he's doing his life to the highest level, right? And I'm looking at Chimamba Kanyama and him and say, who is your mentor, right? Most likely I would choose Chimamba Kanyama. I would choose him, not because he's a better mentor compared to the man who is just a part of the church. Right. So sometimes we look for status, and this is just me being honest. There are a lot of men that we can learn from, but we choose the status. We look at the power the person has, the influence in society, and we're like, okay, you know what, I want to be like that person, because they're like a role model, because of a certain way that they have, you know. Sometimes Chimamba Kanyama can give you the same advice, and that person can give you the same advice. You'd pick Chimamba Kanyama and you tell the same man, like, oh, he told me ABC. I'm like, bro, this is what I just told you 2 weeks ago.
I just told you this.
Yeah, so
yeah, this is true.
It's a perspective of influence, and And I do feel like the men that are doing too well, they're not very influential, and they're not even in the limelight. They're just keeping it on the low key. So we cannot say we don't have a lot of men in Zambia who are influential and good leaders. That would be a lie.
Okay.
However, what we can say is there are few men that are standing in line with the principles of men that are on the limelight, and those few, they have, as my brother has alluded, they have a lot of people that are trying to follow them. You know what I mean? They're trying to learn from them, and so it is difficult. So we have a huge pool, and we have I don't know if you'd understand now the dynamics, and you can learn from somebody, but if somebody is a womanizer, if somebody is divorced, for example, and is not repentant about it, he can be a Christian, he can be anything. Remember, you transfer spirits. Regardless of how good of a secular artist, and I sing gospel music every now and then, does not translate me into becoming a gospel artist. The reason why I'm called a gospel artist is because I've taken a vow, but I want to use my music as a vehicle to drive the ministry of Jesus. You know what I mean? So I cannot be a perfect gospel artist, right? But the principles I stand on as a gospel artist are the ones that make me different. So I cannot get mentorship from somebody who is doing good in their corporate setup, but they're not aligning themselves in the biblical. They don't have any biblical
principles
roots
on the other side of things.
So it becomes difficult because obviously in the conversations they'll make mention of certain things that they're doing that aren't aligning. And not even mentioning, just because I'm connected to them, that network, that energy will get to translate into my other facets of life. So it is always important when you're picking mentors to pick somebody who is aligned with the values and the principles that you have. And that is where the difficulty is. Somebody can be very good, but are they aligning? Are they an atheist? So they will teach you principles that are not aligning with your Christian values, and that's how you get lost. Okay. Now you are at a space where you are dealing with certain issues and stuff. So I submit. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has taken that 10 of I submit.
It's gotten to that point.
It's gotten to that point. So then I'm going to open up the phone lines to the two other gentlemen. All right. If I understand him perfectly, somebody can be good corporately or in other areas, right? They might be proficient in a certain specific area, but however, if their standing is not right, integrity, honor, more specifically as well, God, it's probably not a good idea for you to sit under them for mentorship, which makes even the pool probably a little slimmer. Yes? What are your perspectives around getting mentored by people that do not share your faith or may not have a certain perspective in one area but then are good in other areas?
Just so I can give a very clear answer, what's the difference between a mentor and a coach?
What is the difference between a mentor and a coach? Okay, so it becomes a philosophical game, to be honest. Like the moment we start putting around words, because you might walk into one room where they define those things as two different things, and they have specific elements for them. I've heard people say things like you need a coach. This is somebody who's sitting down with you every day and night. So when people say, for example, I've heard people say a business coach, for example, this is somebody who's there with you day in, day out. Okay, what are your goals? What are you doing? Are you getting up at the right time? Okay, did you chase that deal? They're coaching you. Same way that a coach is with you every day. They are not in the field with you. All right, they're not in the field with you at all. And then there's also another element which is it's been making the waves now, a sponsor. This is somebody who speaks for you in rooms where you're not. So this is somebody who's more advanced than you in a certain space, and they can speak for you, right? And this is more in the corporate sphere, right? You have a boss or a supervisor who you're close to, and you ask them to speak for you in a certain room, or even in business deals, your business mentor, right? So if Chivamba Kanyama was your business mentor, if you're going to pitch, for example, you can ask him to give a good word for you because he is in that circle, right? Now, mentorship, usually when people are talking about these two things, the word mentorship actually they don't bring it up from what I've heard.
Okay, I
Right.
think mentorship comes in now where someone is walking with you. Coaches are like they're not in the field with you and whatnot, but a mentor is working with you in a specific sphere of your life.
Yeah.
I think that's where the major difference comes.
What
in.
makes that tricky is this. Did you hear my description around coaching?
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It sounds the
best.
same. So this is how I would answer you, right? For the sake of simplicity, right? Who has opened up themselves to do life with you? It might be in an area, it might be totally, right? And doing life with you it may be day to day because that person is close enough with you. It may be from a distance, right? So for example, I don't know if you're talking to Lady Norena every day, for example. You mentioned, when I have a problem, I do run to, but she's still a mentor, right? When you do run into the specific area, you talk to her. He may not be talking to her every day. She's still a mentor. Whilst he may have an uncle who he's talking to every day. That is also still a mentor. So people that have opened themselves up to do life with you and allow you to ask them questions and draw from them. If we explain it that way, I think we have a fairer ground to even have a discussion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We begin to separate off philosophies. No.
Okay, then I think I'll have a very interesting view on that.
Let's go.
So then if it's someone that has to do life with you where they sort of get to instruct you on the moral, philosophical angles of life, you are better off than picking.
So that's a bit problematic though, because you've chosen a moral mentor. Somebody can have a professional.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're getting lost again in the lingo.
Yeah.
Somebody to do life with, and also I think the words that I use to do life with you are a little heavy.
Yeah.
Somebody to walk you through a certain specific area or areas.
Yeah.
So put it that way.
Okay, great. So
Let's
if it's that, then again I'm going to vary from, say, where Mr. Ngoma and Mr. Waema were coming from in terms of saying it's difficult to find one.
Okay.
Then perhaps mentorship should not necessarily be about you sitting under one person. Because if you're going to find one particular person who's rounded, you are not going to find that person because there's first of all, the onus is on you to be able to pick a person you want to be your mentor.
Right.
And when you are going through that process of picking or choosing, you look at something particularly that you got inspired by,
Right.
that you felt, I think that's an area of my life I would like to, build. Now, supposing it's, say, academics, and there's this very, prestigious, eminent academician around that you would like to fashion your academics towards, then it's only right that it should strictly be academics only. So that person becomes your academic mentor. Then if it's finances or anything else, then you have another one. So then you have like different mentors who are hand-holding you in different areas.
Okay.
So then you also then get to limit what exactly they speak to you about. I think it lessens also the work that they do, because then their worry is only, if it's the financial aspect, they're only worried about your financial, part. So they are looking at, so what are you investing in, how much are you saving, and all that. They are not talking about who are you dating now, or are you applying for this and that. That's got nothing to do with finances. Okay, so meaning then we will have to get to a point where you have different mentors for a different area of your life. That's the only way it's going to work out. In which case, I believe that's usually what happens, because we get attracted to not everything about people that we want to be mentored by. It's only specific things, right? So we approach them specifically for that particular thing that we got attracted to. Now, when we want everything to simply be on one person, that now becomes there's
excessive
nobody.
burden.
That's Jesus Christ. You know.
The one and only.
Yeah. And that's why earlier when I mentioned if it's, say, doing life with, if now we start to look at it from that point, I think that person needs to be some form of your spiritual guide, like your pastor or something. Because then your pastor may touch a bit, not that he's an expert in all these areas, but he will sort of be guiding you in terms of how you can channel your morality for you to be able to align with values that will build you financially.
Right.
Right. So it's not necessary that he's an expert.
Character, attitude.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Mr. Waema?
I think
Sir.
I fall in line with what both the speakers have highlighted. It's very difficult to find someone that's rounded in all spheres. So you have to pick someone who has a particular component that you value. I didn't even think with what Sam was saying. When you have Kabamba Chinyama and you have someone else or Sunny Zulu, even me, I'll relate more to the person that I have valued, because the person that I've valued, everything that I've valued about them is directly proportional to the weight they do have impact in my life. So I think even when we pick mentors, we're all going to gravitate more to the person that we value in a particular skill set, on a particular direction. Okay, majority of us will look at different speakers, maybe Sunny Zulu or Vusi or Jito, and who picked particular components. Okay, like I like how he composes himself. I want to understand and learn what made him be who he is. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to pick everything about him, but I want to know what made him, what is his motivation and his drive to be the person that he is. And that's the component that I'll be more interested in. You know what I'm saying? And I'll pick that, and that will be what will mirror in my life. But picking someone that is well-rounded, because even starting with myself, I'm not well-rounded. It's only the grace of God that holds me together to be dysfunctional as a person. So even when I come to pick a mentor, I think I'll pick a particular sphere of their life that is more directed, or that I find more valuable. But at the same time, there should be some core principles that should align with me. You know what I'm saying? Because we can't say I'm going to pick, for example, Hitler as a role model. You know what I'm saying? Because the core of Hitler, we all know the story, we've all done our history. You know what I'm saying? As much as he was a very good orator, you know what I'm saying? He was a very good speaker. When he speaks, you know what I'm saying, it had impact on the ground. But the core principles and the core values of who he was are very different from what I would really want. Yes, I would want to be an amazing speaker. I want to be an amazing orator. Okay, but the core matters as well. So sometimes we also need to look at the core of it. So that now narrows even the pool, even more. So yeah.
Okay. Interesting. The core of it. Okay. Here's my perspective. Here's my perspective around it. So, bad morals corrupt good morals, right? The Bible even talks about that. Do not be fooled, right? Who you let speak into your life is very cardinal, right? There's a powerful saying that leaders replicate who they are, not what they teach, right? So I think that there's a big difference between letting somebody speak into your life and studying what works, right? So can we all agree that when we're talking about a mentor, this is somebody you are opening yourself up to? It's not casual. It's not like your teacher or your lecturer. That's different. So let's differentiate between just learning and attaching yourself with somebody, right? Elijah, Elisha, Jesus and the 12, that's more than teaching. There's a part of him that they had to share, right? To a point where even after, when he got crucified, they could identify the guys. They're like, you look like somebody who walked with him. right? So there's a very big difference between somebody pouring into you and you learning from somebody. Fun fact, Mwase Tembekwa studied Hitler. Like, he mentions this a lot, right? And what he's studying is not his philosophies, right? He's studying this guy's ability to just convince people and influence them.
He was an excellent orator. Like, when he speaks.
Right.
Yeah.
So to differentiate the two is quite important, right? Because we will learn so much from different people. We have read billionaire books from most of these people that are successful, right? We've read philosophical books around life. So, for example, what kind of books can I mention? There's so many books around philosophies of efficiency in life that most of us will probably read and study on. This is how best I can improve my budgeting, my spending, my financial literacy. But that is quite different from you sitting under this man and letting them pour into your life. There is a danger there, who you choose to align your spirit with, right? So people do need to be careful. I believe people do need to be careful, but I also believe people do need to differentiate, to know the difference between such. Because you will be in a workspace and your boss is mentoring you. And this man is divorced and is cheating on whoever it is that he's dating right now, but he's excellent at his work. And you're seated there. It's not something you can dodge per se. You do have to guard yourself to not align yourself with that person spiritually. So I needed us to, that is my perspective of differentiating the two. Great. When we're talking earlier concerning the show, and I'd asked you how far you had gone with your movement, and you're like, I've taken a break, and you were, and then we went into a deep conversation around that. Let us jump into the difficulties that you gentlemen have found running your organizations. What are the biggest hurdles you've gotten, perception-wise, from the community, or maybe from the other gender as well, or other movements that are mostly for women? What are the hurdles you've had? So let's pick it up from the conversation we had. Tell the people why you sort of slowed down and what I told you.
Yeah, opposition from the very people that you feel and think will benefit the most. I think from our end, that's been the biggest challenge. So when we started, the first stage was just getting, the initiative to be registered in people's minds so that they can be able to know what's happening, what we're about, advocacy. So we were given a number of platforms on which we spoke about it and what we were intending to do and all the plans and just rolling out the whole agenda. Now, every TV, every radio appearance we had, we were faced with great opposition. Guess from who? From the organizations that are trying to achieve the same thing and that are led by women. So we would receive calls from, I'm executive director for, women, what. And we think this is not going to work. We ask why, and they're like, but why are you focusing on men? Why is it that it's the men? Men are the perpetrators. They shouldn't be focused on. And ideally for us, the solution is that, first of all, you need to be able to understand why is it that men constitute the most perpetrators, or why is it that whenever a man is put in a position of conflict with a woman, his response is simply to get physically violent. Okay? Now, once you understand that, which we have, then you come up with, then how can we be able to help the man, instead of resorting to physical violence, to instead get to a point where they resolve the issue amicably away from that kind of chastisement. Now, so in our study, right? So we discovered that, and some literature give this analogy, that you have a domesticated animal and you have a wild animal, right? So the difference between the two is very interesting. A wild animal has not received any form of care from a human aspect. Okay, now psychologically, the brain that regulates one's rationality is developed through things like interaction and care, and the biggest and most influential factor around that care is experienced during the formative years of a human being. So it's coming from a father and a mother collectively, right? So once that's available, then for animals, for instance, you find domesticated, because these are animals that have been gotten by human beings and they're given a certain level of care that wild animals don't have. And so you will notice a difference. When you come across a lion that's not domesticated, the first thing it does when it sees you, it's attack. Okay, because it's just in defense mode, it's attacking you. But for a lion that has gone through domestication, it's gotten some form of care, it's been cultured to sort of develop a certain rationality. It will have some form of, not reasoning per se, but due to lack of a better term, I'll say reasoning, before it decides to make any such move like attack.
Before it decides that you're a threat.
Before, yes, exactly. So there's that rational aspect involved. Now, the same is true in human beings. So when you look at, for instance, street kids who've grown up in harsh conditions, for them the situation is similar in the sense that for those, whenever they want something, it's money, they want food, what do? They attack you, right? They will find you in the streets, they will not even ask you, they will just manhandle you and grab whatever it is that you have.
Right.
As opposed to you and I, who are properly domesticated, where if you want money, I want something, I have an opportunity to simply say, I'm asking. Now, that means that for the men that usually resort to violence, there's something in their formative years that was lacking, that affected that side of the brain that is responsible for rationality, that affected the brain in that regard. So now it means that for you to be able to rectify the issue of men beating up women or beating up anybody, you need to figure out how you can be able to sort of reset that part of the brain, right? Meaning you need psychotherapists who can then come and decode you and help you get to that space. Now, these are the solutions that we were bringing to the fore. Do you think there's anything wrong with these solutions? No,
Not at all.
Exactly. But we received a lot of oppositions because women felt that, or those section of women-led organizations felt that the only reason why women were subject to domestic violence, GBV, was because they were unempowered, because they were in a structure where there was a dominant man who took advantage of them. So now our question was, and continues to be, does that change the reality if you empower a woman? Because she just becomes an empowered woman who's a victim. So the man still remains the center that needs to be dealt with. So, the organizations that are run by women have serious funding and serious influence. So we got a lot of oppositions, some letters and all that. So
People wrote to you.
Yes, yeah, we got some letters and like, no, this cannot work and all that. And like any well-meaning individual, I think just to prove that we were coming from a point of great concern and that our intervention is genuine, we thought, let's sit down and come up with perhaps a proper communication mechanism. Maybe it's how we're communicating the message that's making them retaliate and feel this cannot work. Because from how we're explaining it and how we're sharing it and understanding it, we think and feel this is a very good approach. Okay, it's different from what's out there, but it's a very good approach. So right now we are still in the process, like I had mentioned, And yeah, like you mentioned, when we had that conversation, I think you did encourage that, you know what, it doesn't really matter what opposition comes your way. If something is good and it's right, it should be pursued. Opposition will always come, but continue with it. And so we are back, and we want to go full throttle this time around and just be able to engage various people. So personally, I'm also part of, for instance, the Omuna community, right? So that becomes a platform for me to also now be able to engage the various men and see exactly what their thoughts are on our intervention, and see how we can be able to engage them. So now we don't want to necessarily be on media, but we now want to get to the work where we're approaching men through the organizations like his organization, and other male-led organizations. Then from there for sort of like from the ground up as opposed to the other way around. So yeah, those are the oppositions we got.
I got you. Mr. Waema?
It's very interesting to hear what other people are going through. It's like you said, it's always from the most unlikely place that you get opposition. It's from the people that should be benefiting from what you're doing that you get opposition. First thing first is when we started this whole platform, Kingsmen, is a lot of men looked at us and said, just men all together, there are no ladies. Like yeah, it's a safe space for men. So 2 points just came out. It's either you're going the other direction, you're men on men, or you're a secret society trying to do some spiritual things together as men. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, why can't there be a good side to the story? You know, why can't there be a group of men actually who want to do good in the society that we're in? And now we got into a place where every time you mention it, you're being pushed in the corner like, oh, it won't work because it's just men. Men don't want this. Men don't need this. Men just need money. Like we've heard of billionaires who've committed suicide.
Tell me about it.
And then, so it means there's a bigger problem in the background.
Right.
So one of the many challenges has been, first of all, finding men that you can work with.
Yeah.
Finding men that you can work with, because everyone seems good. Everyone is, oh yeah, it's good. We can do this because they think there's going to be clout, it's going to be media coverage, it's going to be BBC and whatnot. Like the first 1 year, you are not able 2 likes on your post. You know what I'm saying? 2 likes on your post, and everything that you're doing is not hitting the air. And then the morale begins to die because they're just like, I thought we'd be there, catching waves, catching the big fish.
Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
President will call you.
Yeah.
What you're doing for men is honorable.
Honorable. And I will just want to give you this Peace Prize on Independence Day. But that doesn't come.
No.
The reality is that men's work goes very much unapplauded. And that's a reality the majority of us, I think, has come to accept. And doing the actual work on the ground, like you've heard the amount of work that they've had to do to become the kind of men that should be functional. You have to change your mindset. You have to be more vulnerable. You have to learn how to listen. You have to go for trainings for certain things to be able to be effective in your line of work. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of work that majority of the men are not ready to do and stand with you. And aside from that, if I ask properly, the number of spiritual opposition that has happened in between here is a crazy amount. Me, when I started Kingsmen, the Rev told me, brace yourself. And I thought it was a joke. The same night I went to see him, I was attacked. January, I had chickenpox for the second time. March, I was in an accident. You know what I'm saying? Like so many things began to happen. You know what I'm saying? There's so much opposition that began to happen over time. But then, of course, the world begins to adapt to find more. When you become stronger, the world adapts to find things that burn you out and drain you. So beginning of this year, we had what we used to call check-in sessions. So we have check-in sessions every Friday. Nice. But then you are doing that, and you are, majority of the sessions, it's you holding them. Even as a person, you begin to burn out because you've got very few people to run to. Like we are just from talking about.
Yes.
You go to your brother like, yo, help me do this session this Friday. It's like, yo, I've been called for a funeral. I'm the one who's running point on the funeral. You go to this other brother, he's running all these activities because they're also principal individuals in their families and all their setups. You know what I'm saying? So finding the right group of men with the right skill sets, or men who are just willing to learn and be built, is very important. I once had a conversation with a gentleman that I was thinking of bringing onto the table, but his perspective of things, I said, this one is going to corrupt the whole thing. Like, he was very
Wrong spirit.
Yes, very wrong spirit, very bitter already about life and whatnot. And that's not the kind of people that you want to bring in, because there are people who are actually coming to absorb information from you. As simple as you think it may be, the people who are actually coming to absorb information from it. And if they absorb the wrong information, you are responsible because you put this particular person in that position to speak to them. Yeah. So then filtering through speakers and trying to create a proper curriculum, so to say, for men is equally very difficult. It's a huge, huge challenge. Trying to come up with content that is relevant, that is impactful, that is not, I can't say not toxic, because what our definition of toxic is different out here. Some people say masculinity is toxic. I think collectively we agreed it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not. Just trying to create information and a platform that reaches out to the particular audience you're setting for is a huge challenge. And above all, resources are a huge challenge. You want to come up with a physical event, you know what I'm saying, and you want to bring people together. It's not just going to happen by itself. And you just can't call on people, oh boy, I'm asking for money and whatnot. Because everyone has that difficult challenge, different challenges and whatnot. So you want to do things that are going to stand the test of time as well, and they're going to speak through the time. And you need resources to do something. You need resources from point A to point B. So it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge. Equally, I can't lie, I've been on break for like 2 months because my mental health was at stake. You know what I'm saying? My mental health was at stake. But trying to regain, trying to put our resources together, trying to get the team together and get it rolling those are just some of like the challenges that we've been facing. Just even itself, just the challenges of just properly registering.
Okay, tell me about that.
There is so much paperwork that you think you're done, then they tell you, oh, you need paper shan of article shan. Where do I start from? You know what I'm saying? It's crazy, but we still push until we get the job done, until we do enough to pass it on and pass the mantle to someone else. Yeah,
You know, I get you. Before Mr. Ngoma comes on, let me just make a comment on that whole. This is real work. Like, I started when Mr. Ngoma was talking, I was like, no, I'm excited. Like, this, to do this, guys, and to still stick to it, then you're doing it for more than just. It tests you. It tests you. There's no glamour here, guys. Nobody's lining up red carpets for this gentleman. You know, nobody's out here inviting us for a bunch of interviews. You know, nobody's volunteering money to assist like this. It takes you being passionate, right? You sitting down with those kids for 2 years. Mr. Ngoma going in the community to speak to these kids. Those things. Him going on these shows to tell them the study of how the mind, like. People don't get it. This is a lot of work. I completely relate on all those fronts, and even the spiritual attacks. I relate. I'm gonna leave it at that. Mr. Ngoma, sir, what have been your biggest challenges, sir?
It's been a tough journey, and I think, you know, when we started, we still have advantages in this regard, because we were able to communicate the vision effectively. But one of the biggest challenges that we face is men would find it a safe space to come and have conversation, but they don't want to do it over and over again. They want to show up today and never show up tomorrow.
Like, one conversation is enough for the rest of their life.
One conversation is enough. So they just want to show up and then they don't want to come back. And also, I think learning an organization is very expensive. It needs a lot of money. And since you're not getting any sponsorship, it is difficult to learn projects. We've been able to come up with strategies, because there was a time that I used to put 100% of my salary just to learn the projects. You get paid, you pay for conference facility, you pay for water, you pay for everything, and then people just show up. And even if you make it free, right, people would literally not show up. I remember
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you on that one.
Yeah.
If you put in my, I hear you.
So our first Umuna meeting, we the first one, I think it should be in the one that we remember we used to have. We have safe meetings, safe spaces. Those ones were easy, and they still are.
Right.
To host. We call them the Gents Hangout. These are very easy to have because most of the people that are coming in, they're people part of the network.
Nice.
Those are friends, those are family, those are people that are part of the circle. So maybe you already have 10 people that are already part of the circle, and only maybe you have extra that are coming in. But the biggest challenge is when you organize a conference. So the first conference we had 10 people. The perfect part of it is no one was supposed to be part of the audience. The speaker is the one that showed up. So we had the speaker show up, we had the musician show up who was supposed to perform, and we ended up just having a conversation. The musician was also opening up about his life. We had the conversation.
Wow.
Yeah, it was totally rough. And that was after we paid the conference room, we paid for all the facilities, we paid for the food. There was enough food for everyone, and we couldn't finish it, and they couldn't refund us. They said, guys, you already paid for this food, just eat it. And that was a conference facility that was expensive at the time, and that was my hard-earned money, and I had to pay for transport refund for every person that came. So it was really tough. The second one, at least we had some bit of traction. We were like 30 of us. Then the third one, we filled up the entire conference facility. So we had 300 people showing up. And I think the most difficult part about running an organization like this is the fact that you, the person who is running it, you need to be constantly growing.
Yes.
And you're not supposed to hoard, like you should not have any idea that you permanently hold on to and say, this is my perfect idea, this is how things are supposed to run. And that is very difficult. And remember, you are a Christian, and just by virtue of you saying you're a Christian, those are different ideas that you're supposed to hold on to, you know. And somebody comes to you and says, I'm gay. You being a Christian, there's a lot of things that are happening inside of you, you know, like, okay, somebody's an atheist, somebody is a Christian, but they're cheating, they're having extra relationship with someone in the church. So there are all those different conversations, and it's very difficult to just sit down and just listen to that person, because everything inside of your body is fighting you, is disagreeing with the concepts, is disagreeing with the ideology of that particular person. And also it comes to places where men, they don't want to participate in these conversations because they don't feel the need, because society, you remember, even as you have men in these conversations, they do not believe that there's a place for emotions. There's a misconception, and it's a very difficult misconception that men have, and they fight over this issue over and over, and I've been battling this issue over on the internet, on conversations and whatnot. This concept of Mamuna Samadira, right? It's a very difficult conversation, and I think it comes from places where men have different perceptions, and that is the reason why you have low attendance of men, because they don't believe that they are supposed to express their emotions. Now, there's a difference between expressing emotion and crying. And a man, first of all, a man is supposed to show confidence. A man is supposed to show that he is in charge. When fire breaks out in the house, a man is not supposed to cry. A man is supposed to take care of everybody and make sure that everyone is safe, because his job is to protect, to provide, and to preside, right? So now, with that co-responsibility of you being a protector, a provider, and a presider, when calamity happens to you, right? When bad things happen to you, you're supposed to instill confidence in the people. Everything is bad in the country right now, but you will not hear HH say, no, my people, things are bad, and then he cries on the TV. People will not have confidence in his leadership and in the country.
That would be a catastrophe.
Yes. So, but again, that does not necessarily mean that he's not supposed to cry. He's supposed to cry. He's supposed to have a platform where he can open up and be vulnerable, but not to everyone. Now, this is where the misconception is. A man can cry, yes, but there's also a level of how his crying has consequences. Sometimes men have lost respect from their women because they're incapable of handling themselves in certain respect. So it's a very difficult conversation, and it comes with a lot of stigma, a lot of misunderstanding. So it's tough. So basically what I'm trying to say is that it has been a lot of work, and it has been a lot of financial stress, emotional trauma, unlearning, relearning, and it's been a place where things have been tough several times. Learning this organization, and I have had seen a lot of organizations show up. From the time we started, people were showing up, disappear, show 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 up, disappear. The only reason why we're existing up to now is because we're doing much of our work on the grassroots level. And we're not trying to be more visible, because we've realized when we are starting, it was visible, it was about the grandeur, the drama, and also creating all these massive events. But we learned along the way that these events, people don't learn anything. People just show up for showing up. But for you to have massive and real impact, you need to have rooted conversations. And having rooted conversation is difficult. No one wants to show up and say, I'm having conversations about my extra sexual life. I'm having conversations about my problems that I'm currently going through. A lot of men commit suicide. And all the statistics are showing that men are committing suicide. And the question is why, right? Yes, why? And people can say it's because of economical troubles, but that would be a lie. It is one of the contributing factors, but that's not true. A lot of men are not being heard. A lot of men are lonely. A lot of men have no platform to release and to pour out. And that is the most difficult part of the job, where you are creating that particular platform and you are trying to bring in a man who is on the edge of suicidal. And I'll tell you this, and I've had a lot of conversations with men that are struggling with the thought of suicide, right? And the most difficult part is that when you're having that conversation with that man, trust you me, it is very difficult to listen. It is very difficult to understand. When they're explaining to you issues where you know from your head that the most possible solution right now is just to do A, B, C, D. But from that person's perspective, they don't have that picture in their head. And your job is not to tell the person what to do. Your job is to listen, to just understand what the person is explaining. And that is the most difficult part of the job. And that's the reason why most organizations don't make it, because it is so hard to listen, only listen, and allow the person through the conversation to guide them to the right path. You ask them the right questions to redirect their thoughts into the right direction. It is a very difficult work. So it takes a lot of emotional work, and a lot of us get burnout. You know, we have a lot of emotional burnout when you're doing this work. And trust you me, you don't get rewarded for anything. So it's tough. So, but money is a major factor. Money and men not attending events or showing up for programs, that one I can guarantee you, it can really stress you and make you think you're not doing your work and quit.
You've forgotten one thing, Mr. Ngoma. There's also the fact that, you see, men were naturally leaders.
Yeah.
So when you have men in a space, maybe everybody has an idea that they want to be the first to push. So very few men want to be led, to sit and be led by another man, especially when you're peers. Now that's a big problem.
That's a big problem.
You see, and that's why most of them don't show up, because they're like, I had an idea, I think this will work best, you know. I'm like, no, but then this is the direction we're running. Like, okay, then they don't show up next time. So to get men to just say, you know what, look, this is what you're doing, all right, I'll run behind you. Then as time goes by, this is the idea I have, we can incorporate it at some point. Men have difficulties getting to that point.
Look like you have some thoughts.
Yes, I do actually. I'm listening to everything that has been said, and I'm just, one of the other things that is such a huge challenge is just for them, majority of the men that need the help the most feel like they can get it in one dose.
They don't understand the process.
They don't understand the process that it takes. Even for the men that are seated here to be here, there's been a lot of learning and unlearning, a lot of patience, a lot of conversations, a lot of pauses, a lot of breakdown, and a lot of men want quick fixes. They just want one shot, conversation is done, and I'm good for the rest of my life. But they're forgetting that a majority of us have had so many, even us here, we still have issues that we're sorting out. You know what I'm saying? We've had so many things that sit in the subconscious, in the mind, that eventually just show up over a course of time. You know what I'm saying? Because we're doing the work and we're preparing the environment, then you say, oh, I didn't know I react in this manner. Or, oh, I didn't know this thought crosses my mind. It's the work that majority of the men don't want to do. And because we have been taught that the physical work is easier. Yeah, the people that I know who are workaholics, they will work, but they can't sort out their emotional life. They can't sort out their family life. But the other work that they're doing out there is easier for them because that's what they've accepted in their minds. Even on the thoughts of people of suicide, one of the most saddening things is that these people who are experiencing these things, have been in that space, have convinced themselves, at the lower registry of the mind, that this is the only way out. And now for you to come in and show them the way out, to ask the right questions. Because once you just ask the wrong question or make the wrong statement, you either add fire or quench it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. To get to that point, you equally have to be well versed and you are led by something greater, God.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? There are people that I know every one of us has encountered people that for a reason you're just drawn to this person and you just have a conversation with this person and you listen to them and you're just like, oh, okay, and you just listen to them and off they go. And later on they come back to you and they say, if you didn't listen to me that day, I wouldn't be in the place that I'm in. You know what I'm saying? But you didn't say anything. All those are other facets of it.
The ministry of presence
is
very underrated.
It's very underrated. And we as men, majority of us don't know how to be present in a room. Because we have only been taught that when you have the money, you are the man. That's it. But to be present in a room is more than just having the money, but being attentive to what is going on, paying attention to everything that is the motions in the room, and being able to read it and how best to navigate through it. Yeah. And all that is also lessons that must be learned. We're just we've been taught to be superficially acceptable as a society.
Explain that.
We just have to look good. Just have to have the right fit of a suit. Your glasses must sit right. Your smile must be okay. Your body must be fit. But when it comes to functionality, you're useless, for lack of a better term. We're just superficially fit. Just on the surface. You just look good on the surface. That's it. Otherwise, aside from that, there's nothing else. There's no substance, no value to you. So there's so much work that's required, and those challenges they're big. But with God, we shall conquer.
With God, I hear you. Mr. Ngoma, wanted to jump back in on that.
From what you just been explaining, I think that's where the biggest challenge is, and that superficial aspect is my brother just explaining, is what we all go through. You'd rather have a suit and look smart and a car and possibly the most beautiful girl you can find, because you want to make face with society, because those are the metrics society is measuring you on. So you can say there's this guy that is very hardworking, should be motor. There's this motor, he's running a company called Motor Holding. He doesn't look that smart, but he's very hardworking, right? He doesn't drive all these Porsche cars and whatnot. He really has the courage to show up. A lot of people that show up very smart, well dressed, they don't reach the level of financial status that he's at. But for him, is driven by different things, and I think that's the biggest challenge that we face as men, because we are judged superficially by the principles that society has put on us. Because when we look well, when we look like we are doing something better, when we look like we can sing better, we have all these skills. That is what that is what making women get attracted to us. So how can we distinguish ourselves in the market if we don't do those things? So women, most of the time, sometimes they don't even need to work hard. They just need to have a fine body, and then we all tilt our eyes on them. But for a man, for a woman to look at you, you need to show that you're really a man who is willing to work extra hard, who is capable, who takes care of himself, is able to buy a car. And those are values that we actually talk about. And even when we talk about leading, presiding, and providing, those are all in principles that are in that, But the question is, at what stage is a man supposed to have those things? And that's where the challenge is. So now you discover that if I invite you to a meeting and I told you that this meeting you need to be in a suit and you have no suit, there's a possibility that you may not show up.
Yeah, true.
I may invite you to a meeting and I tell you it is free. There's a likely possibility that you may not show up. Because of the fact that there are so many factors that a man has to look into, you know what I mean? So it is very difficult. It is very difficult. And these are the same conversations that you would realize that is making us men stay away from being part of society. Truth is, men that have someone to talk to have a potential longer life. And this is the study that was done in the US. They followed people up to now. I think there's only one person who is yet to die now. Most of them have actually passed on. They were following these people, and they wanted to study them. Most of them became president, like Bush and some other people that became Nobel Prize winners and stuff, and other people became alcoholic, drug addicts. What they discovered from the study is that men that are successful and men that are happy, one of the factors was having good relationship, because they were telling them, if you are in an accident right now or you want to die, who can you call? And those men that had someone to call, they had a better quality of life, right? So it is a space where most men don't have a space where they can speak, where they have relationships. That is the major cause of early death, the major cause of suicide, the major cause. Loneliness is killing us. Loneliness, and not just loneliness from the fact that we don't have friends around, or we don't have maybe our wives around, or our women, or our sisters, our mothers, or any person around. Lonely because we don't have anyone we can be intimate and share facts about our lives that other people are not supposed to know. Like if I'm struggling financially and I'm unable to provide for my wife, and my wife is constantly nagging me, why are you not providing, right? I have that thought to myself. When I'm at work, I'm incompetent. I'm unable to do the job I'm supposed to do. So I have that job, I have that in me. When I'm with my friends, when we go out, I'm unable to pay for any bill. I'm unable to even pay for my own transport. So I can't tell them about my struggles, right? So now I'm in a space where I have a lot of people in my life, but I'm alone and isolated.
Yeah.
And when now I tell you that I'm lonely, or I don't even know that I'm lonely, but when I tell you that I'm struggling with these emotional things, and you're like, why are you struggling? Look at how beautiful your wife is. Look at how good your work is. Look at your friends, the one that you often go out to and you have this life with. Unfortunately, they're not emotionally available for you, and it's not their job, but you have to have a space where you can go out and pour. So it's tricky. No wonder I love what my brother just explained, to say it is that expectation from society, and we don't know. Everyone is playing this game. Even you right now, you're playing this game. Everyone is playing the game. But do we even know why we're playing that game? And do we know how much it is destroying us mentally? So it's a tricky journey. Yeah, it's a very tricky journey.
Hear you. As we close off, I'd like us to touch on the helping the villain concept. I think Gray had faced to this situation when he started his company, and women, why are you helping men? They're the ones who are the problem, right? And I think Mr. Ngoma as well touched on this. So I put down some notes around that, and here are a few thoughts that I have around this. If you don't heal the boy, you have to suffer the broken man. Right? How can we help people to understand exactly what a broken, violent, irresponsible, even dangerous man is? The connection between that man and the boy that was not dealt with. You look like you're itching to speak.
No, I'm
Jump
really.
in. Jump in. Feel
Yeah,
free
you-
to jump in, brother.
Okay. Just pushed me into burning water. So I'm now okay into boiling water. So okay. That's a very okay. There's this funny thing.
Shoot.
The first time we went to preach in Chuboya.
Esh, brave.
Yeah. I was about to say
First of
exactly.
all,
Brave
Yeah.
only. That's right
Brave
there.
only.
Brave only.
Hey.
Yeah, and it was interesting. So we went to preach to we wanted to get into the young men and wanted to just preach to them, right? There's only one thing I remember. Breathing fast at the police. I can't remember what happened. The rest, I don't remember where my Bible was. Yeah, it was funny.
Oh my god.
Wow. There was a brother I was with. He entered into somebody's house. I don't know where, but it just took us maybe late in the evening where we now have to recollect and have conversations of what happened. And
I'm sorry.
yeah,
I'm so sorry.
Oh my god.
yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah. So that was the tricky part. But
What happened?
we don't remember. We don't.
I think that's what's killing us the most is the fact that entering Chibolia, then there's like blackout season. Then
Yeah.
you're at the police.
I remember we were so sweating, just literally sweating. The guys were shaking, traumatized. It was really tough. And after we sit down and we said, okay, really what happened? And then we had conversations. I think this sits well with helping the villain, because I think our major challenge was to be at a space where we needed to help the kids and the boys in Chiboria, and we couldn't find a platform of how we can help them. So what we did is we started learning their language, understanding who their commanders were, understanding what they do, understanding the culture, and becoming part of the culture. I think there was even a time where we started staying there for a while. We were beginning to have connections, understanding who is who and what. And even up to now, this is where we hold our meetings for Tantico Vibes. So we have a space where we now have Tantico Vibes, where those kids are now coming in and having those conversations and stuff. So sometimes they're the villains, you know. Sometimes they tell us stories that are shocking, and the things that they've done and the things that they're going through. And because it's a safe space, they're able to freely express themselves. Yeah, but the goal and the plan is to build them and to see how best we can help them. And even just men are perpetrators. When we have these conversations, I remember there's a time when I asked a question to say, out of all these men, right, how many of us are cheating? Can you show by show of hands? And no one was literally cheating. There was literally no man that was cheating. Even the children that were there, no one raised their hand. But when I said, how many of you know a man that is cheating? And everybody's hand was up. So it's a sign that we are the villains, you know. We are doing all these things to the women around us. We're doing all these things to the society around us. And what we don't understand, and what society does not understand, that these men are doing these things are not out of will. They're doing it out of training. They're doing it out of programming. Yes, there are few exceptions that you discover that the man is literally hate and is trying to hate someone else. But most of them is because of the training that they have. somebody is doing abusive stuff, and because that's what the father taught him, he's saying a woman has no value. That's what they've been trained. That's what they've been informed. He's saying a street kid has no value. That's what they have been taught. And the street kid is saying, when I see this person walking, I see money. That's what they've been trained. Right. So it is a lot of work, because there's a lot of stigma around these conversations. A lot of stigma. So when we say helping the villain, it's a conversation of going into those men and saying, hey, you are hurting, and they start trying to fight you back, and you say, no, don't fight me, I'm trying to protect you. So even us, as we go into these conversations and in this field, we're also fighting battles of how we're going to navigate into talking to these men, so it's a lot of work. It's literally a lot of work. Yeah,
I hear you.
Yeah.
Gentlemen.
Well, society, the reason why it's now a challenge for society to be able to see the destructive man and the destruction arising from childhood trauma and all that is because society no longer pays attention to the boy, to the man, right? Now, not that there's anything wrong with it, now the focus is only on the girl child, on the women.
Yes.
And that is why when you are listening to the radio or TV, like right now, what's going on between Palestine and Israel, you will hear there's been a bombing at such a place, and among the people who have died are women and children. There's been an accident, and 2 kids and a woman were involved. But in all these, they are men. But the men are just never mentioned to signify that the man, isn't really paid attention to. So now, there's something in us oftentimes that when you're not being paid attention to, somehow you become so destructive that in the name of I want to be seen, and then the being seen becomes distraction. Now, what society now needs to first of all understand is that, you see, this wave, this wave of men that's now coming out to provide assistance to other men isn't only with us. There are a lot of other men there who've realized this reality, and they've seen exactly how powerful men are. When they are properly controlled, they are powerful in a positive way. And when they are neglected or maligned, they are powerful in a destructive way. So now society needs to get to a point where they should now provide so much support to initiatives such as ours. Because our concern is to simply build a man that is whole, build a man that is not destructive, so that that man can be able to build a beautiful society. Someone said that when you build noble men, women and children are the ones who benefit the most. Now, if you let the men to simply be exposed to degenerate ideologies and they become destructive, again, the ones who suffer are the men and the women, the women and the children. So now, society needs to start looking to, because we are men, right? And we are trying to hold other men accountable, and we're trying to provide solution, or we are providing solutions to other, men. So now society needs to understand that, these are the people who are ready. These are the people who have taken the torch, and they are ready to simply fight these battles. I am constantly debating people over these things, be it on social media, wherever I am. And now I'm seen as rebellious. Why? Because suddenly, or for a very long time, actually not suddenly, the narrative that has been painted there, because of the few destructive men, is that men generally are, destructive. And so society feels men and are such a hazard, and now they're trying to suppress and just eliminate the whole idea of manhood and these ideas of toxic masculinity that we know don't exist and all that. So society needs to now get back to that position. If at all they were ever this position, they need to get back to this position where they should say there are men who are ready to fix the damage that has been done, and we need to give them an opportunity and provide them the support. Another thing that my colleagues may not have mentioned, Mutumba, is that when we have these meetings, guess who wants to come?
The women.
Women.
I know this.
Oh, my God.
I know this.
Guess who wants to come? It's the women that want to come, But the men also need to realize that they need help. We need help.
And just to mention, I think when women show up, trust you me, men show up.
Men show up. Yeah.
Okay.
But we need to, I think, get to a point where we just build ourselves even away from the face of women. Because when women are around and we want to show up as men, we're not coming there for us.
No.
We're coming there for them.
Yeah.
So we need to get to a point where we should understand that all of us need to be fixed. And these are the opportunities and the platforms on which that fixing can simply take place from. So solutions are available.
I got you.
Yeah.
You want to jump in?
Yeah. So, majority of the times, the only time that men get a spotlight is when they do something bad. Look at the good work that has been done across worldwide. Men are doing things left, right, and center. Mess up one time, that will be your tagline for the rest of your life.
Right.
Yeah, so already the narrative is very biased against men, and you're seen as a villain. And now it's so bad in society that when you put your agenda and your intentions and your health first, you're seen as selfish. You're seen as toxic. I had someone recently come up to me, very funny story. We had just gotten paid. So she came up to me and said, I want you to buy me a milkshake. So she came up with a command. You know what I'm saying? So I told her, like, you can't command me. You know our response? Your money is our money. Like, your money is my money as a woman. Your money is my money to spend. But then when I sat her down and I told her, realistically speaking, her money is not my money. My money is not her money because I work for it. She started viewing me, you're just a selfish, stingy man. And that would be the narrative for the rest of her life. But in reality, it is true. If I'm going to spend all my seeds taking care of a woman who's not mine, what will I do for my wife?
You pray for her.
Yes. So there is this narrative that has already been pushed that if a man chooses to be financially literate or chooses to take care of himself first, he's seen as stingy or selfish. You know what I'm saying? Try and push you in the corner to become a spender when you don't have the capacity to spend to that degree. You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone should just have access to you and access to your finances, access to your energy, to your well-being just because you were a man. You don't have any safeguard or boundary. Once you have safeguards and boundaries and authority, you're seen as toxic. So all of that comes into play because of a long time of how it was set. If a man was broken as a child and has not taken time to identify the areas in which they are broken and the spaces in which they are broken, they carry it with him. And like my brother Sam was saying, it is programming. They've now been programmed to see it as normal to beat a woman. You know what I'm saying? They've just seen it as normal to be stingy. They've just seen it as normal to be abusive. You know what I'm saying? Because they haven't been, for lack of a better term, domesticated to see what is actually on the ground, what needs to be done. So because we have run away from those realities and we are running towards an atmosphere where we just want to see men as a villain, the harsh reality is there are men that are ready to play the role very well, and they don't care what other people will say. And because a lot of men are hurting and they don't know how to process their emotion, they'll see what is seen as the most powerful thing in their sight and we align with it. And hence there's these movements, the blue pill, the red pill movement and whatnot, the extremists and whatnot, because that's what's seen as the most powerful thing, most aggressive thing. Because aggression is the easiest emotion to express in men. It's an acceptable emotion to express in society. And because that's the atmosphere that is being set for everyone, people are finding it very comfortable to sit there and absorb that information and work with it. Then when you tell them to say, as a man, your job and your role as a responsibility as a husband is to love, they don't know what love is because they've never experienced it. They've never lived it. You get? So because the villain has been, it's predetermined as a man that you will be a villain at some point in your life. Everyone is just seated waiting. And to the women that will listen to this podcast, yeah, they equally have a role to play in what they do and what kind of man they shape around, because they will be mothers at some point. They will spend a good amount of time with their children and their sons, and it will be their responsibility to speak positive things. You can't tell your son you will be a bad man, you will just be a cheater for the rest of your life. You are his mother.
You'll be like your father.
You'll be like your father. You know what I'm saying? That registers in the child's head and will go forever as that is. But when you begin to speak positively, everyone here can attest to the number of people who have spoken positively in our lives, and it's impacted us. And you see, men are so broken to the point that how many of us can take a compliment properly? You know what I'm saying? You get my point? When someone compliments you, it confuses you because you can't remember when you are complimented properly. You know what I'm saying? That's how broken a majority of us are. But now we begin to identify it. And not just identifying and living it, but begin to work to accept it and how to work around it and make it better. Yeah? So the villain is not really the villain. It's just a person crying out for help. And once we understand that this person is crying out for help, it is much easier to approach that person and how to help them out. But even the villain must learn to accept help in the whatever form it comes. If someone says, I want to have a conversation with you, take your vulnerability. Yeah? And at the same time, a friend of mine told me, my friend Lusa told me, choose the shoulder that you cry on. Not every shoulder was meant to cry on.
No, sir.
You choose to cry on a person that's ready to stab you. Like once you just cry, she just goes in the WhatsApp group and she says, this guy is weak. That's it. It damages you and now that hardens your heart. Yeah. So we must also discern where we take our vulnerability, how we deal with ourselves as men, and who we have these conversations around. And just be ready to accept the help where needed.
I got you.
Yeah.
And with that, we close off this session. Gentlemen.
Coffee must be had.
Coffee must be had. We need conversations outside this.
10 people came. I feel you, bro.
Yeah, it's been tough.
I did the same. And I was just there, I was like, all the people that I know came, like, John, I said, yo. But the Shibodia story has been the highlight of my day.
Hey, let me close off the show. Oh my God. Yes. Dude, I laughed so hard. I'm sorry. We're not laughing at you. It's just that, but no, you're brave though.
Yeah. Very.
I should
commend.
I should commend. Let me commend all of you actually for your work. I severely appreciate what all of you are doing, and I've watched what you're doing, how we met, right? I mean, I did check out some of the stuff that you're doing. I was like, okay, so Waema, and we're supposed to have coffee actually.
Yeah.
Yes, but it was when I heard what you were doing. I got up. I was with my friend. I was one of my friends, and I got up. I was like, I need to talk to him, because in this space, when you identify somebody who's doing what you're doing, you have to connect quickly.
Yeah.
And there are not many of us. There are not many of us that are willing to do the heart wrenching, the hard work. You know, when you identify somebody who's really passionate about it, that's why I reached out. I was like, hey, dude, I do the same thing. Let me get your number. We need to talk, right? So I appreciate you for your courage. I appreciate all the young men and young women that have benefited from your work. Thank you for sacrificing your body your mind, and your time. Do take care of yourself, though. Don't burn out, my brother. Don't burn out. I appreciate you for all your sacrifice, and I'm proud to be a co-laborer in the same sphere.
Same.
All right,
Same.
we need more men. Mr. Gray, I'm glad that after our conversation, you're definitely coming back
Stronger.
You know, these things are going to face a lot of opposition. We haven't jumped into the spiritual opposition because it gets real. It really gets real. I believe that the enemy fights communities by fighting the family, and fights the family by first striking the man. So it's no mistake that we're finding it very difficult to do this work. But continue with what you're doing. Proud of you. Keep pushing, please.
Thank you.
I did say you left me hanging. He put out a post that we should post it out and things are gonna happen. So I put it out and I make all these comments, and it's been 2 years now?
Wow.
I'm like my brother. What is going on?
We're going to get back to that.
Awesome. I'm glad we're getting back to that. Mr. Ngoma, the man with the courage to go and preach the gospel in Chivolia. After suffering a defeat but going back. That's courage, that's heart, that's passion, and to do this kind of work, to be passionate about these boys before they become the men, you know, for us to sympathize with them, because most of us in many ways are them. It's not coming from a place of we can't relate. We relate. We've worked on ourselves, and like Waema kept saying, we are still working on ourselves. This takes work, you know. And so if you are a man listening to the show right now, firstly, we appreciate you for joining us. Please know that whatever it is you're going through, you can get out of it, but it's going to require work, sir. It's not easy. They're going to be tough days, but it's going to require work. For anybody else who has been nudged by the Holy Spirit to start an NGO, this is your answer, my guy. It's not going to be easy. You're going to spend money like this gentleman, like I've also spent money. You're going to organize events that are going to be difficult to attract people. You are going to sit one-on-one with young men and hear them cry. And you're going to inspire them. The Holy Spirit will give you words. So if you're struggling on what to start and where to start, just start and let God guide you. Join the bandwagon. We are all here, my brother. If you need to chat about it, I'm sure everybody here is open to have a conversation with you about it. But I've been excited about this episode. I have had a great time. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
for having
This is
us.
our episode today for The Men's Table. Be a good man, be a good brother, be a good father, and we are out.